Okay. Welcome to the Way of Life Big Book Study. I'm Dave. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and that is...
Good evening, friends. My name is Blythe, gratefully recovered alcoholic.
Hi, Dave and Blythe.
We're going to stand for a moment of silence and the serenity prayer. Thanks, guys. God.
Grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can,
and the wisdom to know the difference. And Calvin has the preamble.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Calvin. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thanks, Calvin.
And I don't know who has the set-aside prayer, but it's... Oh, there we go.
Hey everyone, I'm Kyle, I'm alcoholic. Set aside prayer. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself. 12 steps, this book, the meeting, my disease, and you. God, so I may have an open mind and a new experience. All these things, please let me see the truth.
Thanks, Kyle.
Okay, so at this meeting, myself and Blythe are going to read the first portion of this book, which is where our program is found. We're going to have some time at the end for questions and discussion and whatever. Pens and papers, write down questions as you think of them, or comments or whatever. And feel free to highlight your big book as we go through. Okay, so we left off starting chapter 4, but I see some new people here, so we're gonna go quickly do a good old-fashioned recap. And for that, we're gonna start right at the title page. It looks something like that. The title page says, Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. So, a couple of things right off the bat. This is the story of the first 100 men and women that got together in 1935 to 1939 to write this book. If we do what they did, we will get what they got, which it tells us it has recovered from alcoholism. My story gets me drunk over and over again, right? So Blythe and I do our best to keep right to the original message that this book was intended, right? Not watered down. So we learn in the forward to the first about the difference between the fellowship and the meetings. It's super important. I wish I knew it when I first came in. Fellowship, or did I say the difference between fellowship and meeting? I mean fellowship and the program. The fellowship is the meetings where we come to hear about the program. The program is in the book. Super important. Just coming to meetings, if you're a real alcoholic, will not suffice. It's not enough. Sure wasn't for me. We'll go over to the old doctor's opinion. And so this guy is... like the Michael Jordan of doctors for alcohol and drug addiction for his time. And he's the first one to suggest the symptoms of alcoholism. And the first one is the allergy of the body. And so that's on XXVIII, and I don't know what it is on the little...
So if you have the hard copy, it's XXVII. If you have the smaller soft cover, it is XXIV. the top sentence starts with craving for liquor, and that's where we are.
Yeah, but I'm going to go down to the paragraph where it says, we believe and so suggested a few years ago that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. Once having formed the habit, found they cannot break it. Once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things humans, their problems pile up and become astonishingly difficult to solve.
Allergic to alcohol?
I can drink a lot. Right?
So this allergy is an abnormal reaction. So I have an abnormal reaction to alcohol and drugs for me, but so an average non-alcoholic person can have 1 or 2 drinks and shut her down.
How?
I don't know.
I mean,
Tastes like more to me too.
yeah. The only one I can have is one more, right? And if you're alcoholic, that should be sounding pretty familiar, right? Never had one. Just doesn't happen, right?
So that's the first symptom of alcoholism.
That's the first symptom, yeah. And for the second symptom, we will go to... There is a solution on page
23.
23. Is it 23?
Yeah, go to 23 once in a while.
Once in a while.
Page 23.
Yes. Halfway down, technically, I guess, the second paragraph. So, once in a while, you may tell the truth. And the truth strangers say is usually that he has no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses which, if they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot.
So I came to Alcoholics Anonymous because I couldn't stop drinking on my own. Right? Yes, I have an abnormal reaction that when I start, although, bad shit happens, but I don't learn from my experience. Right? Like I had hundreds of terrible experiences drinking. So why didn't I just stop? Right? That's the second symptom of alcoholism, this inability to stay away from it.
And there is the obsession that somehow, someday, we will beat the game.
I think I can quit.
I think I can quit on my own, right? But the second symptom says that's not going to happen. And my experience is proof of that. 20 years of, burning my life to the ground.
So there's the introduction, which is the preface, the forward to the first edition, second edition, third edition, fourth edition, and the doctor's opinion. That's what we call an introduction. And then there's Bill's story. There's a solution, chapter 2, and More About Alcoholism, chapter 3, all explaining these 2 symptoms of alcoholism.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I hear things like, when I walked in the door, okay, so what can you tell me about this malady that centers in my mind that makes it impossible for me to stop? Right? Step 1 is about learning about alcoholism. Right? And now we're through that process. We've come to a place where I learned in the book that I'm fucking screwed. Yeah. No human power can stop me from drinking. Without a power greater than myself, I'm going to drink again. And because I have this allergy, I don't know when I'll stop. Yeah. We talk about a step 1 experience. Realizing that this is what is going to kill me. And now, we're moving on to the Agnostics.
Yeah.
So here we go. It's not all doom and gloom, man. There's a solution, right?
Yeah. That's right. We're starting to talk about that now.
Page 44.
Page 44.
So I interrupt Dave a lot for anybody new here. I'm not just a rude asshole or anything. It's the way we do things.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't like that guy. He just keeps interrupting.
Blythe goes on my step 10 every Sunday meeting. Interrupted me. Okay, so I love how this start of this chapter just comes out friggin' swinging, right? It's pretty awesome. And we always, when we're taking people through the book, we ask them, right? In the preceding chapters, you have learned something of alcoholism, right?
2 symptoms.
The 2 symptoms. We hope we have made clear the distinction between the alcoholic and the non-alcoholic, right? And
Not everybody in AA is alcoholic.
Right? And if when you honestly want to, you find you cannot quit entirely.
That's the malady that centers in my mind. I can't stay away from it.
Or if when drinking, you have little control over the amount you take.
That's the allergy, the inability to control how much I take when I start.
If that sounds familiar, then you are probably alcoholic.
Welcome to the club.
If that be the case, you may be suffering from an illness which only a spiritual experience will conquer.
Only a spiritual experience. The 100 people wrote this book, and it's based off of legions of alcoholics throughout history. A legion is like 5,000 or 6,000 people, and it's based off of legions, plural, of alcoholics who have died of this illness. Right?
Yeah, it's important to remember that before this book came out, we just died. Like, there was no way out. We died. We went into the loony bin and in and out until we died.
Spiritual experience, like if you don't have a sponsor, get one. That's how he'll explain that stuff to you.
Yeah. To one who feels he is atheist, doesn't believe in anything, or agnostic, not sure without a decision, such an experience seems impossible. But to continue as he is means disaster, especially if he's an alcoholic of the hopeless variety.
So the doctor, in the doctor's opinion, previous chapter, he was a chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcoholic and drug addiction. Huge hospital, the United States' third largest hospital. And he was the chief physician there. So this was the doctor when it came to alcoholism. He saw people come in and out of his center. Some people would come in, do his treatment, leave, and go on and live happy lives. Right? Just like today, some people go to treatment, they go and they leave happy lives. But there's a percentage of us who go in, come out, go in, come out, go in, come out, until we die. Right? And that's what he noticed, and he'd come to regard these people as hopeless until a message was carried to Bill, and Bill went in there and started carrying this message to other people in the hospital. Really cool story, totally inspired by a power greater than ourselves. But that's that hopeless variety, right? No treatment's gonna work for me unless I can have a spiritual experience. But anyway, carry on.
To be doomed to an alcoholic death.
That's what I was just talking about. The step one experience, I realized that this is going to kill me.
Or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face.
Alcoholics are like, is it a slow death?
It's important to note here they're giving us alternatives, right? You do one or you do the other. You don't really get to. There's no third option, right?
Yeah, it's it's not a choice. Like you're not like, I don't want this one. It's either you're doing this or this.
Yeah. But it isn't so difficult. About half our original fellowship were of exactly that type. At first, some of us tried to avoid the issue, hoping against hope. We were not true alcoholics.
What does it mean to be a true alcoholic? Brittany? Two symptoms. That a girl. Every time I ask Brittany a question, that's her answer. 2 symptoms.
But after a while, we had to face the fact that we must find a spiritual basis of life, or else.
Or else what?
We drink again.
We drink again
and
we die.
Drink is to die.
Yeah.
Perhaps it is going to be that way with you, but cheer up. Something like half of us thought we were atheist or agnostic. Our experience shows that you need not be disconcerted.
Right? There's no chapter called We Believers. Like most of us, when we get here, are in a state of either not believing in God or not knowing God.
Yeah, and it's important to know, like, when I came, I didn't think this was going to work for me, but I kept an open mind, and it did, right? So this process is designed to get you to that spiritual experience, right? Step 12, after having had. If a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago.
I tried to be a better person, right? I tried to act like people who didn't drink, like good, outstanding citizens and all that kind of stuff. It never worked. I got loaded.
I didn't. But we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us. No matter how much we tried, we could wish to be moral, we could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there.
Right? I do not have the power to stay sober on my own.
Or be a good person.
Or to be a good person.
I tried, man. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly.
Here we go. A couple big paragraphs. This is it, guys.
First, we lacked the power. That was our dilemma.
So what's my dilemma? Lack of power. I don't have the power to stay sober. I can get sober, and I can stay that way for periods of time. That's what's really cunning and baffling about this malady, is that I can get a few months in, right? And then I end up with a drink in my hand again.
We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, capital P.
My favorite sentence in the book?
Obviously.
Right? Do I need power? Look at my history, right? Look at my history. Do I need power? Okay, I do.
Yeah, by this point, we've had that step one experience. We're like, oh my God, I'm really screwed and I'm not going to stop and I'm going to die from this. So it's obvious I need some other power outside of myself, right?
So a cool little thing, you'll notice that where it says lack of power, it's a small p. Where it says it had to be a power greater than ourselves, it's a capital P. Right? It's just like whenever you'll see in any kind of text the word God, the capital G, we're talking capital P here. That's the power that we're able to get in contact with through the process of the steps.
That's right. But where and how were we to find this power?
Anytime the book asks a question, it's not asking you the question. It's it's presenting the question and it's going to answer it. Because if we were asked you, where do you find this power? Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah. That's it, right? And again, like, my answer was useless for staying sober. Right? Like, how did you do it? Well, I didn't, actually. Well, that's exactly what this book is about.
Nice.
Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve a few of your problems.
It'll solve all your problems.
Oh, yeah, right.
So, why did they write this book? To enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. We don't have to go to the far ends of the world to find God. We don't have to go to churches, none of that stuff. We get a sponsor who's been through this process and sticks close to this text. We'll get you there.
Would you say that's the main object of
I
this
think it's
book?
the main object
Okay.
of this book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job, Dave.
That means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. And it means, of course, that we're going to talk about God. Here difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times we talk to a new man and watch his hope rise as we discuss his alcoholic problem and explain our fellowship. But his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God, for we have reopened a subject which our man thought he had neatly evaded or entirely ignored. We know how he feels. We have shared his honest doubt and prejudice. Some of us have been violently anti-religious. To others, the word God brought up a particular idea of him with which someone had tried to impress them upon them during childhood. Perhaps we reject this particular conception because it seemed inadequate. With that rejection, we imagined we had abandoned the God idea entirely. We were bothered with the thought that faith and dependence upon a power beyond ourselves was somewhat weak, even cowardly.
So I hear it all the time in the fellowship, right? Oh, I just got a problem with the God thing. We all do. If we had right relationship with God, would we be alcoholics? No. Right? And we all have...
What about organized religion? What about the proverbial drunken priest?
Yeah, well, exactly, right? And so, we're just starting to throw around some spiritual ideas at this point, right? Just throwing things out there, getting feelers out for you, right? Because we all have slightly different concerns, right? So we're just grabbing at strings at this point, okay? Right? Some of us had things during childhood, right? Some of us thought we were weak, thought it was weak, and da-da-da. So we're just, sticking our feelers out there. Because we have a solution to these things, right?
The first 100 shared these doubts and prejudice,
exactly,
as well as myself, right?
Me too, man.
So what do we got to do? Just keep an open mind, right? That's the key. Where did I leave? Oh, yeah, right. We looked upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological systems, and inexplicable calamity with deep skepticism. We looked askance at many individuals who claimed to be godly.
Shy.
How could a supreme being have anything to do with it at all? And who could comprehend a supreme being anyhow? Yet in other moments we found ourselves thinking, when enchanted by a starlit night, who then made all this? There was a feeling of awe and wonder, but it was fleeting and soon lost.
Okay, I like to talk about, I never believed in God, right? But there were times when I would get a few beers in me and I would get a girl and we're walking down the beach and thanks God, this is awesome.
So it says, yes, we of agnostic temperament have had these thoughts and experiences. So they're basically explaining what agnostic is, right? Some days you're like, oh man, maybe God is real, right? And then the next moment you're like, man, fuck that guy, what's he done for me? And just haven't really made a decision one way or the other, right?
You're not unique, right? That's, I think, a big part of it is that we've all experienced these kinds of things. Yes.
Let us make haste to reassure you. We found that as soon as we were able to lay aside prejudice and express even a willingness to believe in a power greater than ourselves, we commenced to get results, even though it was impossible for any of us to fully define or comprehend that power which is God.
Right, so it talks about laying aside prejudice and expressing a willingness. Laying aside prejudice is my old ideas. I used to think I knew everything about everything and I didn't even have to get off the couch. Right? My ideas did not work. They kept me loaded. So when I come at this with an open mind and I'm willing to lay aside some of the things that I've thought, right? Yes, I've had shitty experiences in life. We all have. But when I'm able to lay aside some of the prejudices, my ideas towards God, and express even a willingness, right? Am I willing to believe in something? We're going to get results.
Yeah, and certain ideas that we had of what God is, right? When I first came in, I heard the word God, I went right to Christianity, which I was I didn't like that idea. But the book doesn't say you need to find Jesus or die drunk. It says you need to find a power greater than yourself or die a drunk, right? So that's it, right? So you can choose what that conception is. It doesn't have to be out of the Bible or whatever, right? And if it is, awesome. But if it isn't, that's okay too.
But
much to our relief.
Still dead.
What's that?
But dead is still dead.
Yeah. Much to our relief, we discover we do not need to consider another conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with Him. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed by a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps.
This is really cool stuff. So the first 100 wrote the book. Anytime it says we in these pages, they're talking about the first 100, not you. And when you look very carefully at step 3, it says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as who understood Him, as they did. Right? So, and here it is. Admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe. Right? If I can be willing to believe in those things, man, we're really getting traction now.
We found that because God does not make too hard terms with those who seek Him. To us, the realm of the Spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men and women.
Never exclusive or forbidding, right? It's important to develop a concept of a power greater than yourself that's loving, right? That isn't going to condemn you, all that kind of stuff.
When therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies too to other spiritual expressions which you will find in this book. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this is all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to effect our first conscious relation with God as we understood Him. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth. But if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was. We need to ask ourselves the one short question.
How many questions in step 2? 1.
Do I believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself?
That's our question. That's our step 2 question.
That's the step 2 question. And as soon as anyone can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he's on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone,
Cornerstone, got it.
a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built.
So this is an arch. Does anybody see that arch? It's an arch, right? Looks like an arch.
It's beautiful.
Whew.
It's beautiful.
I'm always afraid like that doesn't look like an arch, man.
It's a Picasso.
So upon this simple cornerstone of willingness, right? Upon this simple cornerstone of willingness, a wonderful, wonderful spiritual structure can be built.
Yeah. And that willingness sets our direction.
A cornerstone sets strength and direction.
Sure. What time is it?
Lots of time. Keep going.
So even willing to be willing to believe. I'm not willing yet, but I'll be willing to be willing.
That's it.
It's a start. We got to start somewhere. Basically what they're saying, right? That was great news to us. For we had assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with spiritual approaches, how frequently did we all say, I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if only I could believe as he believes. But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him.
I remember my first sponsor going through this process, and he had a little cross on his hat and Jesus written down the sleeve of his shirt. I was like, man, that's awesome. Good for you. I'm glad you have that. But that doesn't work for me. Right? And this is really cool stuff because I don't need that. Yeah, I can commence at a simpler level. Just be willing to believe in anything.
He buried the lead. That's the next sentence. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence on a simpler level.
Sorry, I keep doing that.
I do it all the time.
Bad, because I know the book word for word on this.
Besides the seeming inability to accept much on faith, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice.
Unreasoning prejudice. There it is again. That's my old ideas, my old belief systems. When boiled down, what step 2 is a change in the flow of energy of my ideas and belief systems. My old belief systems and the way that I think things are need to go out the window, and we shift into a willingness, right? So my transfer of energy goes from my old ideas into a willingness to believe in something, and that's magical.
Many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism, right?
Anyone in the room? They're not even putting their hands up.
No one ever, no, really? This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings faced with alcoholic destruction.
Leaning back on that step 1 experience again, right?
Yeah. Which I realized that I can't do this and I'm screwed. This God idea doesn't become so hard of a pill to swallow. I remember thinking like, I hope that this works and that he exists, otherwise I'm fucking gonna die or end up in prison forever. We soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were.
We're starting to give subtle hints towards the human condition in this, right? You don't have to be an alcoholic to be an asshole. And many people could use these steps. So it's not just about the alcoholic at this point we're talking about, right? Like, yes, it beat us into a state of reasonableness, but many people could use this process, right? Human condition.
The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let us have a look at some of them. The practical individual of today. Should we stop there? Keep going. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts those theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everybody believes them without a murmur of doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is possible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption as a starting point.
Electricity is a really cool concept. The science of today, like, we know a lot about electricity, right? We know that there's wires and that there's amps and that there's volts. What else is there, Calvin?
Resistance.
Resistance. All right, there we go. So, when it boils down to it, right, if you follow the wire from the light bulb and you follow it out to the pole and you follow it to the power station, you follow it here, you follow it there, it's going to go to like a dam where it's water, and all we're doing is harnessing the power. That's exactly what we need to do here, is harness the power, right? We can't create that energy on our own, can we, Calvin?
I always liken it to a circuit, right? And if you disconnect the circuit, you don't get any power.
Yeah.
Same as your connection to God.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's about harnessing the power. Another cool thing is about faith, right? I have absolute faith. If I go hit that light switch, what's going to happen? Do I know how it works? Nope. Right? But I have faith in that, right?
They especially didn't know how it worked in 1935 when this was right? Like electricity was like, whoa, it's mind-blowing shit, man.
I also like to say that when I get in touch with this power, man, I was like sticking my fucking finger in a light socket. Yeah.
I've done that when I was little.
We also believe when I hit that switch that the light's going to come on because I've seen the light come on so many times. I have visual proof of it, right? So it's easy to believe kind of what they're getting at.
Shut it down there?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to shut it down there.
Yeah.